Hello, my name is Kayleigh Nauman. I am the North American Intellectual Property Attaché based in Washington, D.C. at the British Embassy. My territory includes Canada, the United States, and Mexico.
Tell us about your background.
My background is in public policy and international relations. So prior to my current role, I worked for a Democratic member of the U.S. Congress for 2 years on a variety of issues related to intellectual property, primarily trade and telecommunications, as well as technology. I've now been in this role, as I said, for 3 years, where I primarily focus on that same sort of policy background.
What is the attraction for UK businesses?
There are a lot of things that attract businesses to North America. The United States market is huge. There's a lot of diversity, not only in what sectors are available, but across the nation in terms of what states specialize in, what sort of resources they have available. Canada and Mexico are quite similar markets. Also, the regulatory regime in the United States and Canada in particular is pretty strong. It's very stable, which provides a pretty consistent environment for businesses to operate in. So exporters should be aware of just the sheer size of the North American market. The United States is quite large. The trademark registry in particular has been fairly inundated with just a number of registered trademarks. Much like the United Kingdom, that trademark registry, the trademarks don't expire. So that's something that businesses need to be prepared to review in depth as they start to think about entering the market. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, formerly known as a NAFTA, also creates a corridor between the United States, Canada, and Mexico that can provide a number of opportunities to UK businesses, particularly those that are collaborating with North American-based businesses who can take advantage of those rights that are specifically built in for North American companies. Canada is sort of similarly structured to the United States in terms of the type of IP regime that they have. Not quite as many registered businesses, so not quite as much as a lift for UK businesses if they're thinking about entering the market, but just due to the proximity with the United States, that is a pretty in-depth relationship that they need to be prepared for. Also great for UK businesses is that Canada recently strengthened its copyright regime, so they now protect copywritten works for the life of an author plus 70 years. In terms of the Mexican market, enforcement is always going to be sort of the key issue there, and something businesses are going to need to sort of have a plan for how they plan on moving forward with any instances of IP theft or infringement.
What are the typical issues?
So in the North American market, the typical IP challenges, I would say, that businesses face, like I said, in Mexico, the biggest issue is going to be enforcement. Online enforcement in North America is an issue writ large, though obviously something UK businesses will likely have faced in the United Kingdom as well. Again, the size of the North American market is just huge. It's something that I think many UK businesses I've spoken to weren't quite prepared for when they've entered the United States. So just being aware of just the sheer amount of competition that might exist is something to be prepared for. But truly, it's a really open market for UK businesses to operate in. There's a number of similarities between all three countries' intellectual property regimes with the United Kingdom, with some very sort of minor differences. So it's generally a very friendly market.
Tell us about any recent IP successes.
There have been a few successes recently in the North American region that I think will be of really great interest to UK companies. The first is that the United States recently created a copyright small claims court. It's based loosely on the same court system in the United Kingdom and provides an opportunity for small creators to protect or enforce their copyright protections with the Copyright Office, which has been a really excellent development and looks like it's already being utilized quite frequently, which we are really excited to see. Mexican implementation of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement similarly had some really great steps taken for IP enforcement online, particularly in that copyright space as well, in terms of intermediary and second-party liability. We're really excited to see what that looks like when it gets rolled out. and has been operationalized for a little bit, as it's still a pretty new development. In terms of the market more broadly, I would say otherwise, a lot of what challenges we see in North America are quite similar to the challenges that we face in the United Kingdom. So needless to say, nothing that would be insurmountable to UK business.
Any advice for UK exporters?
For businesses wanting to trade in North America, my biggest piece of advice is just be prepared to dedicate the time and the resource needed to reviewing the relevant IP registries to ensure that your rights, can be protected, aren't already being utilized by someone else. Most frequently I've come across businesses from the UK who have similar trademarks to businesses already operating in the United States. That's a really huge cost to rebrand or to litigate. So being prepared to spend that time going through those registries, finding an attorney who knows the system, who can work with you on just those little nuanced differences between the UK and North American systems is also going to be really crucial to any success in that market. And truly, one relevant, one possible, registering your intellectual property rights in that North American market, whether it's US, Canada, Mexico, or a combination. Obviously, rights don't automatically transfer from the UK, sadly. So it's going to, be an expense at the top end, but a worthwhile expense. Folks can find my email address, or rather you can contact me at my email address, which is publicly available on the UK IPO Attaché website.